I am Jeff Foxworthy, and welcome to Gamekeeper Podcast. If you want to learn more about farming for wildlife and habitat management in budget, you're in the right place. Join the Gamekeeper crew direct from Mossy Oak Land Enhancement Studio as they discuss the latest wildlife and habitat management practices, news, and of course, hunting. There's no telling what you'll learn, but I'm going to tell you, I bet it's interesting. Enjoy.
We're live in 3, 2, 1.
All right, everybody. Well, welcome back to the Mole Hole,
the new and improved
the
Mole
Gamekeeper
Hole.
Studio. This looks a lot different than it did last week.
We didn't have any lights last week.
It's so bright in here.
It is.
now.
It is bright.
Maybe I'm getting some vitamin D intake. I've been having to take supplements, but I think now we're all good.
Well, so we tried to dress up the studio a little bit and add some
light.
Yeah, I like what they've done here. So we'll see how this goes.
Finally got the turkeys dusted off and everything. So
Got Bobby's Wildlife Museum.
I was expecting Lanny to be wearing sunglasses in here.
I've got them right here.
Bright. Yeah.
No, it is definitely lit in here.
Yeah, those
100%.
Leopold glasses are nice.
I'm going to tell you what, I love these Leopold glasses. It was a little care package, I guess, that they sent to you and I stole from you. It was great.
yeah,
Too old to wear this kind of stuff anyway.
David Mack has some and likes them a lot too.
So what's been going on this week with you guys?
Well, it's only Wednesday.
Well, this past weekend is what I'm referring to. Did anybody get out and?
I did, but I actually got out in the salt water. I'm not gonna lie. You know that little, we were talking about it last week, the little transition we've got going around here. You hit the nail on the head when you said, when you start hunting in the afternoons and you hear the frogs start chirping, you know, it kind of puts you in a different mode. So the deer are kind of winding down. They're definitely going in that feeding mode, kind of grouping back up. But we made a run down to the salt water just because it's been there for a while. So actually, McKellar and his family and I ran down to Dolphin Island, caught a couple redfish, and hung out with the kids, let the kids run crazy down there. So had a little break from hunting, thinking about a little fishing on the horizon.
Yeah.
But I got back. Hayden's just talking about deer hunting, of course. So we got a little bit of time left. We're going to get back in the woods. There's a cold front coming in tomorrow, so I'm kind of pumped about that. Mm-hmm. Get out there and see what happens.
So we got a meat hunt on the horizon.
I love
the
meat
annual
week.
Meat hunt. Yep.
The meat week.
And I love that now that it's into February with Alabama, that's a great time during the middle of the day to walk around the edge of a pond with a spinnerbait and catch some big fish.
Some midday action.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I've been seeing some folks catching a few fish lately. So that's going to be exciting.
Yeah, well, so let me kind of, before I forget, the sponsor of this week's podcast is, all the attractants that the BioLogic full draw attractants.
Full draw.
At Walmart, the BCP.
BCP!
There's a mineral supplement, there's a block, and they're fantastic products.
Look, we spent a lot of time engineering these products. I mean, we really did. We didn't want BioLogic. BioLogic is not, these aren't attractants. These are all about
nutrition.
Herd health and nutrition.
That's right.
Now, do they have attractive qualities to them? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But they're more built on overall herd health than anything. So you'll find these formulations that not only have a variety of ingredients with them, but the key proteins and the science behind every bit of it. So a lot of thought, a lot of process going into getting these products, and we actually released one. It's been 2 years now.
Yeah, it is.
2 years now.
I'm a big fan of that BCP.
I'm telling you,
beans, corn, and protein.
Yeah,
powders.
there it is.
And my deer love it.
It's amazing.
They find it immediately. When we first tried it out, my buddy Hayes put some out, and he hunted it the next day, and had 4 bucks on it the next morning. And he put it out the night before. And I've had a lot of, I'm always on the phone with customers, and you wouldn't believe all the praises it's got.
We had a guy from Mobile drive all the way up here because he couldn't find any in his local Walmart all the way here to get some. So
it's amazing.
So you can find it at Walmart, guys. There's a 20-pound bag of BCP.
Now, it's 40-pound bags of BCP.
Pound.
They're small, ground down. It's more of a ground down attractant. Check with your local game laws about what you can do with this stuff. Absolutely. But again, it's engineered for herd health. The maximum minerals is another one. And then look,
the block.
That dadgum full draw block is unbelievable.
Right, my deer love that block.
They really do. All of them have roasted soybeans in it, which is highly attractive to whitetails. Those roasted soybeans, they can average almost 30-40% protein.
And I think the more they've roasted makes them have more.
I vaguely remember.
Is it more palatable or more protein?
I think both.
Oh, really?
So Blake Davis is the guy that kind of spearheads this project. He's kind of a mad scientist when it comes to putting this stuff together, and I've just been super impressed with it.
Well, their experience comes from they create feeds for all kind of livestock.
Sure.
So, but they're really interested in wildlife, obviously. So you get the roasted corn and the soybeans are obviously for attraction and nutrition, but then that pellet in there is not only moisture resistant, but it's got all the vitamins and different things that they need. So. And, they are just unbelievably attractive and nutritious. And that's the most important thing.
So, guys, you can find this at Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great product. Did you have something, Doug?
Oh, I was just going to comment that I saw you sneaking out with a full draw block the other afternoon.
I've never seen – that's the biggest feeder I've ever seen in my life, Bobby.
Well, I got a protein feeder just to feed the BCP.
Just feed the BCP.
Yeah, it's a Texas Hunter's feeder. It's probably going to break me trying to fill it up with feed.
Yeah.
It'll hold 1,200 pounds. But it's a nice feeder. I'm excited about it.
It is
Evidently,
fun.
It garnered a lot of attention yesterday on the back of my trailer because I got a lot of text.
Everybody in town was texting me, too. What's Bobby got going on out there?
Yeah, it almost looked like a big explosive device or something.
So is your whole goal, we're winding down the season, supplemental feeding? Is that what you're trying to do, just to get them where they need to be?
It is. I wanted to offer them an all-you-could-eat
buffet
and just see if we can't raise the nutritional plane and try to help them out. I know that's a hard thing to do. I don't have a very big place at the.
This is going to the Ponderosa.
Well, I'm gonna tell you what, that feeder ought to cover it if it's not a very big place.
It's a big feeder.
It's a big feeder.
Yeah, it sure is. All right, so what about blood on the BioLogic? Has anybody? What have y'all? I tell you what I noticed this week that really jumped out at me was the Lindsays shared a photo of a giant deadhead that was found in Ohio that just almost looked unbelievable.
Yeah, it was almost hard to believe, but they verified it was a free range whitetail, massive. What was he, like a typical 8-point, but just crazy huge.
And somebody had the past 2 seasons sheds from him, and so somebody's heartbroken.
Oh gosh.
But that was a giant. I would encourage you to go to the Lindsay's page and look at that. It was incredible.
Yeah.
And then Brittany Mackey, she killed a really big 6-point, I think about 10 days ago.
Man, I love a big 6-point.
Yeah.
I really do.
My little buddy Watson McMillan killed his first buck down near where Cuz grew up hunting, down around Natchez and Meadville near the home of Chitta. It was about 130-inch 8-point.
For his first buck?
Yeah.
A 138 in Mississippi?
Yeah.
Wow, that's big.
It was huge. So he's real excited about it.
I bet he is.
Well, the ducks don't seem to be around here like the.
Man, it seems like every year we're like the season never was with ducks. Oh, but there was a big deer killed in West Point too. You showed me a picture of it actually,
yes.
And that was shot week every year. It seems like in this area somebody catches an old big deer post rut loafing, and he did. That was a giant deer.
It was 25 inches wide.
Main beams were 24 and 26.
Yeah,
that's a giant deer.
It just it was one of those deals where it just looks like it.
It looks like
going
a Midwest
out and doesn't come back.
Looked like a Texas deer.
Yeah,
it
was
what
giant.
It looked like.
Was giant
I would have liked to have seen him.
Oh, I know you were texting me. Who is this? Where is this? How did he get this?
Now, where is this? Yeah, and then your directions were on
I was not.
Yeah, I'm not going to get you to drop in.
I corrected myself,
and then it made sense once you did. Yeah, so. All right. Well, it's winding down, so we're not hearing as much. But there's a big front going on up in the Midwest, so it might put some more ducks down for the last few days.
I hope so. It's supposed to get cold here tomorrow. It will be nice, that's for sure.
Well, good. Well, today's show, I'm real excited about it. We've got a great guest. It's Dr. Mike Chamberlain.
Making his second appearance.
Yes. And we're going to talk about turkeys with him, and which is, last time we talked about wolves, which is, he knows a lot about wolves. He may be the expert, the southern expert.
He's supposedly like the turkey doc guru, the guru, but he's fascinated with all walks of wildlife.
Yeah.
I saw him quoted in an Audubon article I was reading on conservation earlier this week.
You were reading?
Yeah, it's pretty rare, isn't it?
Yeah. So before we go too far, let's speaking of reading, let's look over here at Mac and see if he can give us one commercial. And we'll have.
Is this the same commercial for last week, or did you write another one?
No, I didn't have time to write a new commercial.
Oh, come on, Bobby.
Well, it takes a lot of time to do these things. So, Mac, if you wouldn't mind, if you would hit us with one, please.
Spring's right around the corner, so we all know that means for the guys up north, they're going to be looking to plant some clover in the ground. And everybody around here is big clover fans. I mean, just the year-round food sources, I mean, you can't beat it. I mean, and especially being able to plant the spring for the guys up north. And every gamekeeper loves clover. I mean, there's no doubt
It's
about it.
a no-brainer.
If there's one thing you can plant, it's got to be clover.
I agree, and that's where I'm at. And for us, our Clover Plus is red and white clovers with chicory added, and usually it lasts from 6 to 8 years as long as you take care of your field.
6 to 8 years. That's a long time.
Absolutely. And then our non-typical clover is one of my favorites too. It's our large white ladino clover. I mean, it's got a ton of forage value. It kind of late to bloom, so it focuses on its forage potential on that. And then which is a crucial time, you know, for antler genesis when the deer are growing their horns. I mean, just having that longer forage period, I mean, it's huge for them during that time. But check them out. I mean,
So think about this. Let's just say you got a plot to last 5 years. We do have it. We hear it 7, 8. It's not uncommon, but 5 years. So a bag is roughly about $50 for an acre. You divide that by 5 years.
That's extremely economical.
And then you think about spring, summer, fall, and winter forage being available for deer. The seed is actually the least expensive part of
it. Always is in most of
this
those
whole
equations.
equation.
That's exactly
It's
right.
what a value it is.
Yeah, and these are this is not run-of-the-mill clover. You know, we need to. These are highly engineered, highly sought after, specific forages that we've gotten from New Zealand. And this is the non-typical. Did it come from New Zealand too?
No, the non-typical is a white ladino. It's U.S. bred. And we sell out every year, too. So.
Yeah, it's great in the South. It's one of the best performing clover crops we've planted in the South.
The Clover Plus is New Zealand red and white clovers, and the non-typical is a U.S. bred clover.
Yeah, it's exclusive to us.
Yes, that's right.
So what are we talking about on protein on those clovers?
High 20s.
High 20s?
Yeah, pretty consistently. If you fertilize it well, get a good fertilization regime
And
going.
if you think about all the insects that like hanging out around clover, that's a lot of protein for your upland birds,
right?
Especially that.
It is the one thing that
gobbler.
has so many benefits for just wildlife in general. You know, not only from pollination, I'm assuming bugs, and it's a soil builder too.
Yep.
So it's a legume. Is that correct?
Yeah, it fixes nitrogen.
So-
Free fertilizer.
Free fertilizer. And some guys are even, I'm going off on clover a little bit here. Sorry there. But some guys, I think in the Midwest, and maybe I'm wrong, they're planting clover and then drilling annuals in those clovers.
Yeah, you can do that.
Hey,
Pretty versatile.
that's pretty cool.
Yep. Lanny, when we were younger, or at least when I was, it didn't occur to me that you could go to school and learn and study wildlife. Like Dr. Chamberlain he specializes in wild turkeys, and there's a guy yesterday who specializes in waterfowl.
Mm-hmm.
And Bronson is just a
deer guy.
know-it-all on whitetail.
Yeah, that's right.
So if you're a 14 or 15-year-old kid listening to this, there's all kind of futures.
There is,
in
if you love
wildlife.
wildlife.
Yeah.
We're lucky we got, Mississippi State right here. So I went to wildlife biology school, actually, and graduated in marketing. But it's really cool to make a living studying or working on something that you love. And we all do that here.
Yeah, and Mississippi State's got this deer lab. We know what great guys they are over there, but they're Georgia and Auburn and Clinton.
There's tons of them.
There really is. I think Tennessee does it.
Yeah, I think that'd probably be your four. And then look, Texas A&M, and they've got it. All those land grant institutes are really important for wildlife.
So when you were 15 years old, what did you think you would be doing now that you're in your 40s?
When you were young, I wasn't born yet. But after I was,
Got him.
but no, believe it or not, I have a funny story about that. When I was in, I think 7th grade, 8th grade, everybody had to get in front of the class. They told you to go home and think about, what you loved and what you wanted to do, and come back to class and report on what you wanted to be when you grew up. And of course, you know how my mind works. I wasn't thinking like everybody else was. So I think I was the first to go into class. And I got up there and they said, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, I want to be a mountain man and I want to come to town once a month. And everybody in the class laughed at me.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I can see you saying that.
I think, I just wanted to, I always knew I wanted to do something outside. I couldn't, I'm hard to contain anyway. So
this last year of pandemic has been like a dream for you.
it is an absolute, my mama said that. She said, you've been waiting on this your whole life. And, look, I'm not trying to make light of the situation at all.
No,
But it will put some perspective on, what's important out there and, where you want to spend your time. So,
sure. So, Dudley, what do you think you'd be doing by now?
Well, we had a family business, so I thought I was going to fall into that. So not a very fun story, but my dad passed away when I was young, and we sold the family business, but we had some land that had trees on it, and I took that over when Dad left, and that's kind of where I started getting interested in all of this tree stuff and growing things. So
yeah, that makes
and
sense.
I distinctly remember you talking about picking up your first copy of QDMA.
Yeah.
And how it changed the way
I thought about
all this. Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was actually one of my dad's best friends gave me a membership to the duck camp.
Yeah.
Right after my dad died.
Yeah.
And I started going out there. They all became my dads, but one of them had joined QDMA, and there was the magazines on all the tables at the duck camp.
Wow.
And I read the first one and then just started going through all the rest of them.
That's pretty cool. So, Bobby, what about you? How did you transition from Playboy extraordinaire into to wildlife aficionado?
And I kind of thought at this point in my life I would probably have 3 female detectives that worked for me.
Yeah, Charlie's Angels kind of.
Exactly.
You were a dreamer.
Yeah, I'd be running a detective agency by now. Or my backup plan was I'd have a van driving around the country solving crimes. Kind of Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Doo-ish. You and Shaggy, you and Copper hitting the roads. So, let's hear your story, though. I mean, how you ended up here is really interesting to me.
Well, it isn't. It's a very, story from the heart, but I had had a little video business, made outdoor videos.
Bobby Cole Outdoors.
How-to instructional videos.
Bow hunting.
And they're
basic,
hilarious.
And
perfected archery. Multiple titles.
And I met Toxie early on, and Mossy Oak sponsored my little tapes. And that was back when there were video stores, and we would sell videos to people would go rent them.
What was that? What is a video? Oh, VHS tape?
VHS. And there was a Ray's Rent-A-Movie around here that rented a bunch of them. Anyway, long story short, I got married and had a baby on the way shortly thereafter, and I realized I need a real job.
I can't deer hunt for a living. I've got a baby now.
Yeah, and so the true story. I was in a little church there in Wetumpka, Alabama, and was like it was on my mind. What am I going to do? And I went down front when they were doing the little invitation thing, and just told the preacher, man, I just need to make a big decision. I need to change a little career path, and told him, and then slipped back, and he prayed for me and slipped back down, sat down, and then the next day,
this is amazing.
The very next day, Bob Dixon called me, and I was in my truck. I was selling construction,
rebar for
him, and Bob Dixon called me and said, "Hey, we were wondering if you might like to come over here and come to work." So. That's how it happened.
Wow. I fully believe we were all destined to be here, and there's a little bit of divine touch with every one of us how we ended up here.
Yeah, I was in forestry school, and in the class where you identify trees.
Dendro.
And somebody came up to me, Blake, and said, "Man, you know so much about identifying trees. You ought to see what we're doing." I said, "Okay," and I went with him, and he showed me. The beginnings of the nursery,
of Native Nursery,
and I've been working there ever since.
So. And I just moved in and refused to leave when I was young.
Yeah, Yeah. Well, they're all good stories, and I firmly believe I was meant to be here, and you can't run me off.
I know I'm meant to be here.
And this is a very special place, and so looking at my phone, it Mike just texted Zoom update almost done.
Hey, that's cool. Hey, you talked about that land grant institute. Even as a child, my dad, they had Mississippi State had a public school on whitetails, so you could sign up and come down here for a long weekend and take a course put on by Mississippi State as a hunter to educate yourself more about whitetail and whitetail conservation. So it's almost like I don't ever remember not being infatuated with learning more and more about wildlife and nature. Mm-hmm. Kind of crazy.
You know, going back in time, and you were a little bit of part of this, Dudley maybe a little bit, but access to information wasn't like it is today. Because I can clearly remember the first time I saw a buck rubbing a tree or making a scrape, and it was just so impressive to me. Because you'd only seen still imagery in an Outdoor Life magazine prior to that. But then when the video world came along, people were videoing this, and you could rent a video. And then now social media has taken it even further. So a young kid like Hayden or little Dudley, they can go on and see a buck making a rub or making a scrape. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, they visually can see that before they ever actually see it.
Yeah, I firmly believe I mean, you got taught by somebody. All of us got mentored by somebody that's our age, because the access to that information wasn't there when we were really young. But it's exciting to see, what those platforms are doing to help, people not only learn more about what they love, but to get engaged in it. So, and that's what Gamekeepers is all about. I mean, that's why we're here, is to, as Toxie says, shine that beam of light to help everybody, live a better life. So,
all right, Lanny. So we've got one of our favorite guests. I think we all have enjoyed listening, watching his posts on Tuesdays, Turkey Tuesdays, and we've listened to him on a couple of other podcasts. He's fascinating because turkeys are probably one of the things that we're most interested in.
We like those turkeys.
So we've got Dr. Mike Chamberlain, and today what I hope we'll end up being able to talk about is how difficult it is to get a clutch of eggs laid and then hatched and raised up, and just what all it takes to get a gobbler to adulthood. So,
I'm excited.
So so we should have on the phone, we should have Dr. Mike Chamberlain here somewhere.
I'm here. It's good to talk with you, Bobby.
Oh, good. Well, we're
making his second appearance on the Gamekeeper podcast.
And I want to point out, Dr. Chamberlain, I'm going to call you Mike just for we can simplify, but we do want to let the audience know that you are the turkey doctor.
The turkey doctor.
But I want to point out that Bronson Strickland's podcast with us has about 50 more downloads than your last one, and he wanted me to point that out.
Bronson getting brutal, isn't he?
Yeah. So what is there some kind of
competitive nature? This is good.
We need to know about it.
Our good friend, he's a good guy. I can see him. He likes to poke and prod, so I can see him saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, we'll see if we can't.
We'll find something to drum up on him.
Yeah. Lord have mercy. Well, so we're really we appreciate you being here, and sorry it was so much trouble to get hooked up, but. It's my understanding that this is dead center of your wheelhouse, something you enjoy talking about all the time, and that's about the difficulties a turkey has in just going through its daily life. And so we've got some questions, but if you could kind of speak to that and get this little program started, that's where we want to go.
Yeah, sure. It's tough being a turkey. It's tough making it to adulthood. If you look across the South at our study sites, which are basically from South Carolina, South Carolina over to East Texas, our nest success, meaning the percent of nests that actually hatch, each year is about 20 to 22%. So about 80% of all nests fail. And of the birds that do hatch, about 2/3 of those broods fail. So if you look at the numbers there, you got 20% nest success and about 35% of all the broods that hatch live for a month. The average brood size after a month is about 3 to 4 birds, meaning about half or more of the clutch dies within the first month. So when you start factoring those numbers together, it's a bit startling actually, but about 7% of all nests produce at least one poult that lives a month. And then you factor in a big unknown in the turkey world is we don't really know what happens to these birds from the time they're a month old until they're right now when they're in winter flocks. We don't really have a good grasp of that because it's hard to mark a poult with a radio that you can use to track the fall as it's growing and becoming a juvenile bird. And it's very difficult to get at that question. So that's a big unknown. Then we catch them in the winter and we realize that very few are juveniles, that most of them are adults, which makes sense since they're so tough being a young bird. And then we lose, jakes are not foolproof. So you've got juvenile birds that die, right? They're jakes that are harvested or a few that are killed by predators in the spring. And then they roll around to their second summer, which at that point, that's when they actually become relevant. If you really think about it, that's when they become breeding adults. When they're the odds of you looking down a gun barrel at a tom is quite steep. I mean, if you kind of look at the numbers, it's really remarkable. And I've posted about that on social media several times because I really think sometimes we can lose sight of how truly special it is to get a bird to be 2 years old, much less 4 or 5 years old, when every one of us that are talking here is out there, gunning for those birds, and there's predators out there that want to eat them, and it's really pretty remarkable in my opinion.
Well, it is, and listening to that and thinking it through, it makes you think about what can I do to help.
Yeah, 100%.
And if it's predator management or predator control, are there things that guys as gamekeepers or people that are interested in having more turkeys on their property, are there things that stand out to you that we could be doing that would help our success any? Yeah,
I mean, absolutely. It really boils down to scale. That's really the issue with turkeys or many other species like turkeys that use large home ranges. So when you kind of step back and think about turkeys, you need to first recognize that they use thousands of acres a year, not hundreds. Their winter home range in the South can be 4, 5, 6, 7,000 acres a month. And these birds will cover some ground. In the spring, they don't use nearly as much for the obvious reason that they're breeding and then they're kind of in their reproductive areas. But yeah, so you start thinking about private landowners, like, what can I do? Well, we know what turkey habitat is. We know what it looks like. We know what winter habitat looks like. That's acorns, bottom line. That's mass-producing trees, waste grain, things, if you're in cultural areas, forage plots, things that produce succulent green vegetation, like clovers in particular in the winter, are valuable. And we know what reproductive habitat looks like. We know what nesting cover is. We know what brooding cover looks like, or what it should look like. So if a landowner's interested in the habitat angle, there's solid science out there telling us what it looks like. Structurally, what does it need to look like? And then I tell people, if you don't have enough acreage to manage for the entire annual cycle, which you would need thousands of acres, then talk to your neighbors and figure out what their objectives are and whether they're amenable to cooperating to manage it broader. because that's what it's going to take to move them. It's going to take people like us or people that are like us but don't have access to any land. And all they can do is talk to people, their friends or their family members that do have property and try to convince them to do things that will help move the needle. You mentioned predators. The predator angle, that's one of the most contentious and controversial topics that comes up.
Right.
Trapping predators can be effective. The problem with predation, when you talk about a turkey, is so many things kill turkeys and so many kill nests. So when you start thinking about what can I do to either manage predation, that is a really tall order, because you're talking about managing species that can be legally harvested. You have some species that cannot, that routinely kill adults and young. So the predation, the predator control angle is more tenuous than the habitat angle. If we do a really at fulfilling their habitat needs, predation is less an issue. I'm not saying it's not an issue. I'm saying it becomes less of an issue. I think we talked about this last time I was on with you guys, but in many ways we've created landscapes much better predator habitat than they are turkey habitat. And if we were to alter some of that, the predation issue would start to resolve itself, at least partially. Now, the problem is, and this, stop me if you need to, but the problem with predation, predator communities are diverse now, and there's no market for fur. There's no incentive to get people to trap outside of the fact that they want to do it to help the resource. And to be a predator management, research has shown this. Predator management has to be every year, and it has to be intensive. And if you are managing a small tract of land and you're doing a really good job, you're influenced as much by your neighbors. So if your neighbors are not doing the same management, all you're doing from a predator standpoint is creating a sink. And as soon as you take your foot off the throttle,
they're coming
you've got
right back in.
Yeah.
Coming right back. That's
right.
Particularly species like coyotes and raccoons that are prolific, that eat a lot of different prey items and have a high reproductive capacity. All you're doing is creating a void that's filled pretty quick. I'm not discouraging doing it. I'm saying that that's a tenuous, tall task to make an impact at a broad scale. And this comes up a lot. It's really interesting. I hear a lot of people talk about predators and what can we do to incentivize people to trap predators. And you guys may hear about this a lot, like bounty systems, things that would incentivize people to go out and trap predators. Again, recognizing we can't trap all the predators that eat turkeys, but when you start talking about bounties and things like that, I encourage people to step back a second and think about what the general public, how they perceive bounty systems. Research has shown that most people don't support bounties because you're basically using the mindset that you're going to remove one animal to benefit another one so that more of that animal can be. And that gets to be tricky in the public eye,
Sure.
not in our own
yeah, sure.
But in the public eye, that gets tricky.
I mean, trapping in general is tricky in the public eye.
Yeah.
It is. It's been it's a controversial issue. Although we know it's one of the best wildlife management tools we can use, it's still controversial.
So Mike, as we, we're right here in 2021, and there's, the world's, the population's growing. There's habitat being lost every day. things are changing, and as we are, could we have already had the heyday of the wild turkey? Could it be behind us? And as we look into the future, I mean, is it going to be one of those stories that we talk about? Boy, I can remember when
we don't want the quail thing to happen.
Yeah,
that's all I know.
Yeah, well, I'll be careful how I answer this question because I get accused of being a doom and gloom guy, but I say I sure hope not. I sure hope that we can reverse some of the challenges that we're facing right now. It's going to be tough because our landscape just doesn't look the same to a turkey as it did 30 years ago. That's just reality.
Right.
And we're not going to change parts of the environment for this bird in a way that we would like. I mean, we have urbanization issues, the need to feed our own people. I mean, there are all these very complicated topics that factor into what we can do for this bird. I do think on an optimistic side, I think that more attention being paid to this bird and to the challenges facing the bird now than there have in many years. And I think a lot of people recognize that we have some work to do if we want to enjoy this bird in a way that is sustainable. So 20 years from now, to your point, Bobby, do we want to step back and look at ourselves and go, damn, I wish we had done something? Or do we want to say, you know what, we did this again. We've restored this bird once, and now we face these challenges, and we improved the situation as best we could. And now my kids, your kids, everyone's grandkids are going to be able to, continue enjoying this bird. Mm-hmm. I'm optimistic about that. I'm not as optimistic about some of the challenges that we just can't, as managers and hunters, we just really can't tackle it at the scales we need to, such as some of these issues we're talking about. That's going to take some creative thinking, and we're going to have to make people appreciate the relevance of this bird and understand that the habitats they use and the landscapes that they flourish on also support clean water. Mm-hmm. They support sustainable timber harvest. They support sustainable agricultural systems. That's what we're going to, in my opinion, that's what we're going to have to do if we're going to keep the ship righted. As you guys know, most people don't turkey hunt, and a lot of people are interested in turkeys, but they're not interested in consumptive use of turkeys. So I think if we can kind of move that needle a little bit, make people understand that the things that Gamekeepers, for instance, wants to do to the environment to maintain sustainable wildlife benefit society at large, then we stand a much better shot.
Dudley, did you have a question?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've got several, but one of the main ones that came to mind while you were talking about like fragmentation, my non-scientific thing is, I've been turkey hunting since the 80s and on the same piece of land. And when I was a kid, I only remember one person in the whole area that also turkey hunted. Mm-hmm. He happened to be the game warden. And I've got a cool story for another podcast. But nowadays, I can put my Spartan camera up on a private road that runs through my land, and I may get 20 different trucks driving by a morning during turkey season. And, trucks parked all up and down the road. And we want more hunters. But are we creating our own problem?
Is there a question in there somewhere?
I think he knows what I'm talking about. So anyway.
So you're saying, is it related to overhunting?
Overhunting. I know you mentioned fragmentation. All these 300 and 400 acre tracts, a lot of them are 40s and 80s and 130s. And
well, and he was even saying too, you know, I mean, a 300-acre tract is not even big enough. It's thousands of acres.
I didn't realize that.
I didn't either.
But instead of having a father and son or a father and daughter hunting on 600 acres, you may have 7 or 8 people hunting on 80 acres now.
Well, I've definitely noticed that where I am on public land, there are a lot more hunters.
And then it's also getting easier to, you know, technology and all that. So anyway, that really wasn't a question, but I think you get it.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly documented that participation in turkey hunting has skyrocketed, you know, in the past 20 years, and to some degree, you know, the tools and technology that we have available to us now, I think, facilitate some of that. The social media, the instant kind of communication, the mapping system, the things that allow us to be more efficient with our time. I think those things factor in. The tricky thing is, as you mentioned, Dudley, is, you know, we want hunters. We need hunters.
Sure,
absolutely.
As hunters, we can't really each other and go, well, man, there's a lot of us out here. That's a problem. That's a good thing, because life skills drive revenue, and revenue drives management, and so it's kind of a double-edged sword, you know.
Exactly.
That if you had a lot of participation and you had more than enough resource to go around, then there's no problem. If turkeys were a put and take resource, trout in a stream, then you could just go stock a bunch of them and catch them or harvest them and be done with it. But that's obviously not the way it works with turkeys. So yeah, we are encountering some issues, and I'm going to call them issues, but I almost see a lot of opportunity here to educate and to discuss amongst ourselves. Okay, well, let's just say, I don't know that these numbers are accurate. I'm just using them for illustration. So let's just say in this state, there are 50% more turkey hunters today than there were a decade ago. If that's the case, then we have more people that are interested in this bird. We have more resources being generated to help manage this bird. We have more interest in this bird. Those are all positives. What we don't have is more turkeys.
Mm-hmm.
Could we use the fact that we don't have more turkeys, but we have more people that are interested in turkeys, just take a step back, use some big picture thinking and say, you know, well, here's an opportunity. We have a resource that's in limited supply. I think there used to be this mindset decades ago that there were just more turkeys than you could kill. I mean, you couldn't kill enough. And clearly we know that's not true. But could we use the opportunity to step back amongst ourselves and say, you know what, there's a lot of people that are interested in this bird. And if there are a lot of people interested in this bird, then there's a lot of people that may be willing to give a little bit.
Yeah.
Give a little. And if they are, then we need to capitalize on it and use it and use that momentum. I see that momentum now. I see people having the conversation.
So if I'm hearing you right, and I know you have to be careful, and you are very careful, and you're very eloquent in your words, but it might be an opportunity for people to self-police their own clubs or a group of hunters. Mm-hmm. And just because the limit might be 5 in Alabama doesn't mean you have to kill 5 turkeys. So it may be that you realize that 3 is plenty.
Right.
Is that kind of what you're talking about, Doc?
Yes and no. The no part of it is, I would just say, we can't hunters judge each other. If people are following the game laws that are set within their state, then I'm not going to criticize a person, and I don't think any of us should as hunters. The yes part of that question would be, I think in some situations we need to be more reflective and introspective meaning we need to look more at ourselves and think, okay, I'm not seeing the birds I saw 10 years ago. We're not killing the birds we used to kill. What could we do to help remedy that situation? And if one of the remedies is, you know what, we're going to shoot fewer birds than we used to on this, let's say our lease or our land or whatever it is, so that we can carry more birds over into the next year, then that's a completely reasonable decision to make, but I can't make that for someone else. But I will tell you, I know a lot of people who are doing that.
Sure.
Who are starting to say, you know what, we can't kill 10 times off this farm like we could in 1995 or 2000. We're going to kill 6 or whatever the numbers are. I see that quite a bit. I have a lot of conversations with people about that. I'm contacted a lot about that. Usually ask, well, how many birds should I kill? You know, how many? And there's really not an answer. You know, there's not a block. It's not a uniform prescription. It's based on a lot of factors that some of which we've talked about. But yeah, I think we're in the days where we're going to have to be a little more. We're going to have to look at ourselves a little more strict and say, you know, what can we do? What's within our control here? And harvest is one of those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, the turkey hunters that I know, the serious turkey hunters that I know, I think all would be willing to do what he's saying and look at ourselves and look at our property and say, hey, we need to just kill 4 down here on the. And we've actually done that for years.
You've been doing to me to that for years.
I've limited Lanny on his turkey. How many he could kill.
He always limits me. I don't know what the deal is. I mean, doesn't necessarily limit himself.
But, you know, on the flip side of that, I bet all of us know somebody that we all think is probably killing more than they should.
Well, I think that goes back to what he's saying about the state game laws, too, because even when he's talking about micromanagement versus macro management, you know, it's going to have to be on a wide scale for it to really have an effect. You know, it's great for us to think that everybody will do the right thing.
Right.
But, you know, the law is the law, you know, and, you know, I remember the days that I was trying to kill 3 in Mississippi and 5 in Alabama. You know, do I want to do that anymore? No, you know, I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I think. Go ahead.
No, well, what you're saying, and for the last few years, Mike, we've had Lanny and I have had a property together for a long time, and I bet it's been 10 years ago. The birds were declining, and we said, hey, let's just limit this to 2 birds.
Yeah,
and we did that, and the birds kind of bounced back, and we've stayed with it. But I've kind of come to realize that, you know, 2 birds is I've had a good season.
Oh, absolutely,
a
good season.
Two birds.
You know, now of course with kids hunting too, you know, even just 1, you know, to have that experience, we're very, very fortunate here that all of us here at these tables talking about that we've been able to experience that stuff. And of course, you want to experience it again and again. But yeah, I mean, sitting down on 1 goblin turkey and having what good hunt a year is should be enough. Although it's not for me.
I'm usually fine with 1 or 2.
Yeah.
I honestly can't remember the last time I killed a limit.
Yeah.
I'm very happy for my friends that do.
Right.
I also am not the world's greatest turkey hunter either. You know.
I think it's interesting, and I think, Dr. Chamberlain, I think I picked up on this last year, but there's also, wasn't there some talk going on about not shooting the strutter? And how us as hunters always want the strutter, shoot the strutter, the dominant turkey, the dominant one in the flock. But in reality, that might not be the best option for
the property.
For the property, yeah. And I'm hitting on stuff here that I don't know anything about, but maybe it was something like it takes so long for that flock to get reorganized. Behind when that dominant bird position changes, you might be missing some opportunities for breeding and bigger clutches.
Yeah, so that's one of the topics that I get asked probably more than any other. And the bottom line, we can't look at turkeys. Contrary, now I'll guarantee you right now, there's somebody that's going to listen to what I'm about to say, and they're going to holler out in their truck as they're driving. I'm an idiot, and I'm okay with that. But we can't look at turkeys and just in a 30-second episode, looking down a gun barrel, determine who the dominant bird is. I'll entertain the argument with anybody, because there's so much that happens before we ever encounter that bird that we don't know about.
Mm-hmm.
If you have the opportunity to watch a group of birds routinely, and you're familiar with those, let's say there's 3 toms that are hanging together, and you watch them for a little while, yeah, you can tell who the dominant bird is. But how many times have you ever been on a hunt where you're looking down your gun barrel, your heart pounding out of your chest, you can't hear anything, it sounds like tonight in both ears, because you're just on pins and needles, and the next thing you see is a fan 30 yards over the ridge, and 2 birds come over the hill at you. One of them's strutting, one of them's not. And you have a decision. Do you shoot? Well, who do you shoot? Well, if you're Mike, you shoot whatever one presents you the best shot.
Me and you on the same page there. Ask Bobby.
And I may be criticized for this, but again, I'm okay with that as well. I have pretty thick skin, but if we time our hunting seasons correctly and we don't harvest too many toms, shooting a dominant bird is not going to matter, because we are harvesting an appropriate rate. We're harvesting an appropriate percentage of the population, and we're doing it at the right time. If those things are in place, it should not matter who we shoot. You shoot the turkey that walks up there and gives you the best shot, the most effective kill, the clear target, whatever you want to call it, you shoot that bird. That's my opinion. I have no science to say that. I just opinion. What I do have science to say is that we know what an appropriately timed season is, and we understand what harvest rate should be. I mean, we know that. We know we should shoot a certain percentage or less, and we know that we should do it at whatever time, depending on where you live in the country. And, if those things are in place, this question becomes a moot point. Because to your question about the pecking orders and the reshuffling, we know that occurs, but we don't know how long it takes. In other words, if you shoot a dominant bird, we don't really know how long it takes for another breeder to step up. In some cases, it may be tomorrow, because there may be other dominant birds that are there that are in the same environment. In other cases, there may not be. So there's goes into that we don't understand. We're trying to, but that's a hard question to get at. So my opinion is, let's just make sure that we're harvesting the bird the way that we know, based on biology, is the correct way to do it, and set bag limits that are appropriate and shoot the bird that walks up there.
So is it possible that our seasons, I know, Bobby, you and I love that opening weekend of Alabama. I mean, last year it was cold and raining, and we still just get so excited about it, because there's something about when the leaves aren't on the trees, the way that gobble just echoes through that flat land that we hunt, it's like, oh, I just can't wait. Is it possible that we're starting too early?
Yeah. You're trying to get me shot.
Well, we don't have to hear this part of it.
There's only 3 or 4 people listening.
Yeah, there's not many people that listen to this, but they're all turkey hunters.
And this is it's a really tough question, man. the season frameworks for any animal, no matter how you set it, somebody's mad.
Oh,
Yeah.
And I will just say, I get criticized for this frequently, and I think a lot of people don't exactly understand how regulations are set. But I don't set regulations.
Right.
I don't have any regulation setting. I don't do any of that. I'm not involved in any of that, and neither are any other researchers or scientists. It's the state agencies that take information given to them, and their biological staff either chooses to use it or not. And then the administrative system within that agency, whether it's a commissioner or a commission or whatever the case may be, those people then design regulations and they put them in place. Sometimes they're biologically grounded and sometimes they are not. So just to make that clear, what I do as a researcher and what other people like me as biologists do, that's not our job. We don't do that.
Sure.
In fact, we don't even make, at least speaking personally, I'm not even asked to make recommendations about seasons. I don't say, hey, you have a 2-bird bag. That's not my job.
You just give them the data.
I wish it was.
Yeah.
We're not blaming you, Mike.
No,
We're just asking your opinion.
No. This is a sensitive subject with people because to the point that was just made, that opening day is cherished.
Yeah, it is.
That's something that people, hell, we all are itching to get out. And when we all look forward to the opening day, what it is, because we get out and do the things that we cherish, and then you're tired at the end. But like right now, I'm sitting here after a duck hunt. I'm exhausted, but there's only a few days left.
That's right. You got to go. That's right.
Keep going, and turkey season is the same way. And so I understand the opportunity. The start dates are really something that people get up in arms about because it's important to them, and they have every right to be to at least want to understand. Well, why are you considering? Why is the state considering changing the start date or the end date? You name it. Doesn't matter any aspect of the regulation. That's the question that every hunter should be asking their agency. They should be asking questions. Well, why are you considering doing this? Why are you proposing change? The question about are we opening seasons too early? We have known. I say we, not me. I was a kid, but in the 1980s and 90s, there was research ongoing that was used to set. It was the standard. It was the standard. It was work done in Missouri that was used by some researchers and biologists to write a set of guidelines for how hunting seasons should be framed. And the authors of that document very clearly, who are the lead author, Bill Healy, was a renowned researcher and a great guy. And they clearly in this document that, you know what, the most conservative season for this bird would be to open it when they're already into their nesting, so that you could and they're already done breeding. So who cares if you kill them, right? He predicated those recommendations on a few things. One is, you kind of have to have some production. So you have to produce some turkeys if you're going to do that. And as we talked about, we're not producing as many turkeys as we used to, but the recommendation was, hey, start it when nesting has started to get ramped up. They said at the peak of nesting, of nest incubation. But that means where you're at about the median date, the middle of your nesting effort. So about half your hens would be incubating nest. Presumably the other half or most of those would be laying nest. And at that point, the toms are some percentage of them. That's the critical point. Some percentage of those toms, whether they're dominant birds or not, are expendable. You can kill them. He says in this document, he says, we are probably going to have to change regulations in the future. In fact, it's on page 3 of this document. I know it by heart, that we're going to have to take a look at these regulations through time, because very likely a lot of things are going to change. That's going to change. Hunter numbers are going to change. He actually, a bit spooky, foretells where we're sitting right now.
Yeah.
That it's going to change, and we're going to have to take a step back and see if what we're doing is still appropriate. He also in this document noted that few things could throw a monkey wrench into this being spring harvest and seasons. If you kill too many times too early, the whole system could go haywire, because we know from previous research that shooting a lot of your dominant birds early can create some problems down the road. But he says, you know what? As long as your harvest rates are appropriate, then, and you time your seasons right, things should be okay. But let's take a look in the future and see where we are. And I think a lot of agencies now realize that maybe we are where he said we would be back many years ago, which is needing to maybe take a look at some of the things we can control and some of the things we can't. And if we need to make changes, make them. If we don't, then just plow ahead. But yeah, that's a contentious issue. And the bottom line is, the short answer to your question is yes. Are we opening seasons too early? If you're setting seasons based on the biology of this bird, then in some states you are.
Gotcha.
You are opening season a bit early, unless your harvest rate is really low early in the season. And as you know, almost every state with the same data can show you that's not the case.
No.
Right.
Yeah. That's why we love it.
now most states have tagged a youth season earlier.
Yeah.
One of the things I've noticed just reading is that insect populations seem to be on the decline. I'm just thinking that may have something to do with it too. But are there any gaps in the research that you see? Like, is there anything that you'd like to see researched in the future that hadn't really been touched on yet?
Oh, man. Yeah.
Like, what's an idea for a project that you'd like to see happen in the future?
Well, okay, I'll tell you, but I do want to respond to that, your comment about the insects.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of validity to that, because the past few summers we have been sampling insects, bugs, at areas that broods are using. And as all you guys know, bugs matter. Bugs are insects, broods. They have to have them. The adults have to have them. Those poults they're growing rapidly. They're molting. They're doing all these things that require protein, and bugs are protein. So they need insects, and they need to be able to catch them quickly, and they need a lot of them so that they don't spend time burning energy to get energy. That's the bottom line. And I have been particularly concerned with what I have seen, because what I have noticed is when I go to these sites where these GPS marked hens and their broods are, I mean, we know exactly. They were standing right there. Like, they were right there is where they roosted last night. Right over there is where they were at 8 a.m. Right over there is where they were at 10 a.m. Turkey broods feed all day. They're not like adults. They don't loaf around a lot. There's some popular press saying that they spend a lot of time loafing. Young birds don't do that. They feed pretty much constantly.
Like my kids.
Even when they're hanging around home and just relaxing, they're eating. Because they're growing machines. And what I've noticed when I went to these sites, there's two things that have stuck out to me. One is there's often exotic species of plants at these. For instance, one of the prime breeding sites across my study sites in Georgia is Japanese stiltgrass. And that's an invasive species growing in bottomland areas, hardwood, riparian zones. And if brood is going to stiltgrass because that's where the most bugs are, that illustrates a potential problem to me. The other thing that I've noticed is, and we have some research that's about to be published, the student's finishing his thesis right now on this, you have to go look for bugs at these sites. I mean, when you walk up there, they don't just flush everywhere. That you have to start scratching around a little bit to find these insects, with the exception of spiders. You see quite a few spiders. And that kind of causes pause, because I look back to the same person's name, I look back at some of Bill Healy's research, who back in the 1970s imprinted poults to himself and fed them. Like, he walked them around and observed them feeding. The number of bugs that they caught in a certain period of time seems much higher than what we're seeing. You know, we're not watching our broods, but we're going to where they were, and we're kind of inferring what happened when they were, how many bugs could they encounter. And I see that brood habitat may be something that we've known is important, but we may have overlooked it just a little bit, because that could be a critical key that maybe we're not paying as much attention to. In other words, yes, a lot of net lost, but then are these poults succumbing to predation because of the habitats they're using, and are they not able to grow as quickly? Are they not able to molt quickly? Are they not able to tree roost as quickly? And we could be talking a day, or 10% slower growth rate. That stuff all matters when it comes down to whether you live or die as an adult. So that's an area of research, Dudley, I really would like to see more work in. The problem with that, man, is so few broods hatch.
Right.
So few hatch that it takes you to get enough data to say anything. Like I just published a paper recently. We had over 100 broods. That's unheard of. I mean, that's the largest of movement data that's been published on eastern turkeys for broods. And it took us 5 years to get across our study site. So that's a research question that I'd love to see. I'd love to see some work on winter survival and winter habitat. I think that's another thing we may be missing the boat on. I think these birds may be doing some things in the winter that are creating or causing or kind of facilitating some of the issues that we see in the spring, whether it be females that are a little underweight, whether it be they're not as conditioned as they were historically. Should that be factored into some of the issues we're having in nesting season? In other words, what we're providing them as winter habitat is not cutting the mustard, if you will. Are they ending up a little underweight? You know, there's research on waterfowl showing that's important. That
gotta have that fat, yeah.
Yes, and if I look around the Southeast, and I'll be specific to the Southeast. I look around this region and I see a fairly massive loss of hardwoods. Hardwoods are being replaced by pine, or they're just being removed, and that matters. Maybe some of the large home ranges we see in the winter that we didn't see 20 years ago matter more than we think. Maybe they matter more, not across the state, but within local pockets. Maybe these birds are are dealing with some issues in winter that are causing some of or contributing to some of the problems we're seeing in nesting. That's speculation on my part, but that's an area of research that we really haven't paid much attention to, and I think we probably should. Yeah. Gosh, dude, I could go 3 hours about
what he wants to say.
So Mike, it's depressing talking to you.
I know we got to start working on cricket conservation.
Oh my goodness! But I'm so thankful that you're a voice out there that's communicating this and ringing the bell.
Well, you
and
need the data to make good
it.
decisions. It's all the old elms, bad stuff in, bad stuff out. You get the good data, you get the good information, you can make better decisions. And I know you just mentioned it. You got the guys that make the laws have to balance public policy with the data, but numbers are numbers. Mm-hmm. It really is.
Well, I don't mean to be depressing. I actually, Bobby, say that I had a follower on Instagram that commented on one of my posts recently, and he said, basically, the short of it is, I'm tired of you being so negative. You're like a Debbie Downer, And honestly, I don't mean to be, and I don't want to come across as being that. I think what I am is I think I'm a realist, and I see the data because of what I do for a living, which I'm very blessed to do, and I enjoy it. But I see the data that not all see.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm trying to use some of the platforms that I'm using is to get the information out there. People can understand, what this bird goes through just to be a bird, just to be a turkey. That, like we've been talking about, it's tough being a turkey.
Tough being a turkey.
No, we're thankful that you're doing this. Yeah. I mean, I think we all are from the bottom of our hearts.
Oh, you've heard me talk about it. It just hurts my soul to think that my children won't have the experiences in the spring woods that is self-serving, but
all of us would be willing to reduce our harvest if we thought it would help make the opportunity to continue to have birds.
Yeah. I'd even start later.
Yeah. Well, whatever was I would trust somebody like Dr. Mike Chamberlain to recommend to the agencies, and we ask those agencies to listen. But the guys, we need to listen to the researchers. We
need to help spread his word and publish the data. You know what I mean? Because that's how you change public opinion.
Sure,
you really do.
Sure. So, hey, Mike, I want to. What's one of the problems? Go ahead.
It's getting that data for people to see that.
Right.
Research takes time, and some people are openly skeptical of anything that has to do with science, and that's okay. I get it. But it takes time to do the work that we do, and it takes a lot of money. And you want to give the agencies the best possible information you can. I don't think you couldn't find a turkey researcher in the world that doesn't want to provide the best piece of information, but it takes time to do that. And we as human beings, we want something done today or yesterday. And so that's one of the problems. And that's one of the real benefits of social media is that if you are willing as a researcher, and some are not, if you are willing to put information out there that isn't quite published, but is relevant to people and will generate discussion and thought and ideas and brainstorming, then you can kind of harness some of the work that's not published but is still ongoing. This is my opinion. You can harness that work and make people aware that it's ongoing and that they should care about it. Some agencies do a really good job at taking the data that's provided to them and making sound decisions, but don't, and that's just the way life works. You mentioned about the opening. There's a lot of creative ways to go about changing turkey seasons if the agency determined that a change was warranted.
Mm-hmm.
And all sorts of models across the United States that are out there. That maybe some people in some states aren't even aware of, but you see all sorts of possibilities, if you will. Bag limits matter. The opening dates matter. When you kill birds matter. So you see some states like South Carolina, they use, and Missouri does the same thing, where they season within a season. So, you can harvest a certain one bird like the first week, or I don't know exactly what it is in both of those states. What they're trying to do is limit that early season harvest without limiting opportunity. And that's what turkeys want. And I'm a turkey hunter. I turkey hunted my whole life. You want to be able to go turkey hunting. I mean, damn.
Yeah,
turkey.
I do. Raise your hand.
Can I get an amen?
Yeah. That's exactly right.
So the agencies, and I'm not trying to defend the agencies, and maybe this will sound like them, but agencies have a tall order when it comes to pleasing us. I mean, they're getting political pressure, they're getting social pressures, they're getting information from science, research, the biological staff, and they're trying to wrap all of that into what makes the most
right
for people that live in that state, and also in some states what makes sense for people in other states. So, the agencies they're in a balancing act, and what they're trying to do, I've been poked at quite a bit on social media about this. You're an advocate for limited opportunity. No, you got to be kidding me.
Right.
You have to be kidding. You'll never find another person that's more of an advocate for getting butt outside and go hunt than Mike. I mean, that's it. I love to hunt. But on the flip side, I know that we need to make sure that we're setting our regulations as soundly as we can. And there are creative ways to do that. There are creative ways to keep people afield and manage the resource. We do it for all sorts of species.
Right.
And again, it's good for turkeys. And I think those types of discussions are valuable to have, amongst ourselves. Like, what are some other options? So if we don't, to your point, Laney, I think you move the season, forward. In other words, open it later. Okay, well, is there an alternative framework? The waterfowl people have been really good about this. They have a decision matrix that's based on their breeding population, and they use that to set their adaptive harvest framework. We don't have that for turkeys. And although we can't really do it the way the duck people do it, we could use a similar approach where we're more proactive than reactive, where we use the data that the states have a little more creatively to say, okay, well, if there's not support for changing when the season opens, is there support for doing A, B, or C? Those are the types of discussions that I think would be valuable. And again, I don't have those conversations, but I pay a lot of attention to what what states are doing. And I know a lot of in various states, they're friends of mine, they're colleagues, and I see the things that they're doing with their own legislators and their own administrators to work these issues out. And I think it would be great if every turkey hunter had a voice and have a way of saying, you know what, I have an alternative. Well, let's make that alternative heard. Those are good discussions.
Yeah, discussion is a key to it for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, Mike, we sure have enjoyed having you on today. We covered a lot of ground, and I know we all have questions we didn't get to ask.
I sure have some more.
We've had you for well over an hour, but we'd love to get you back again and talk about another topic.
Yeah, let's not talk about turkey season.
Yeah.
Well, look, how did your duck hunt go?
We had a great hunt.
That's good to hear.
It was, I tell you, and I hope my boss is not going to listen to this, but I had to get out. I had to get away from campus because the duck season was about to end, and I love to duck hunt. I've always loved duck hunt, and the thought that I can't do it here in a week, it just kills me. So I came to visit some old friends. I'm not, as you know, I'm not far from you right now, a couple hours. And yesterday was tough. It was exactly what you and I texted back and forth. It was tough. Birds were stale. I hunted all day, 3 birds. It was tough.
Wow.
But I'd be damned if I was going to hang it up. I said, you know what, going to the end. But God blessed us this morning because that north wind brought just enough birds in for us to get our limit, which, is not a measuring stick, but it sure was nice given how tough this season has been. And moreover, they were almost all drakes and they were fully plumed.
Oh, man.
So, and they decoyed well. And I got some great pictures, and watched the dog work, and it was a blessing. Now tomorrow will probably suck, but that's okay.
That's duck hunting. We all know about that. That's for sure.
Yeah, but today was good, and after tomorrow I'll go back to work. And if that's it for the year, then that's it. And if not, and I get to sneak away Saturday, which they probably already knows I will, then I'll give it one more shot.
There you go.
We're right there with you.
Well, that's the one thing that has impressed me about Dr. Mike Chamberlain. He is a big hunter.
Oh, he's a hunter. Yeah.
Deer, turkeys,
which
ducks.
In my mind, makes him more concerned about what he's studying than if he wasn't. So I love it.
So he was here at Mississippi State for a long time.
Yeah.
And then now he's at Georgia.
Yeah.
And but I think Starkville's played a big role in his life.
Well, that's good to know.
Starkville, Mississippi.
He's a bulldog across the board.
It's still playing a part of my life. As you know, I have a son who's in college at Mississippi State, and have long ties to Stark Vegas, and
Vegas.
Yeah, I love coming here. I love visiting this state. Have close friends that are still here. Have a kid here, so yeah, my ties are still here, and probably always will be.
That's good to know.
Well, come tailgate with us one weekend, Mike.
Absolutely. Or come hunt with us.
And hunt.
Yeah.
I hope that we will, by next fall, we will be tailgating shoulder to shoulder.
Oh, yeah.
That would be good. So, yeah, we need to work on getting Mike on a hunt.
Yeah, because I got a lot more questions. Yeah. I mean, we don't have enough time here. I didn't even get to talk about moss heads and the original turkeys and the fifth species of all our crazy theories.
What's all the weird things you found in a crop?
Yeah, is it a crop or a crawl? What is it?
What's the weirdest abnormality you've come across? I mean, I got a million questions.
We've enjoyed having you on. We really appreciate it.
I'm glad to join you always. Be glad whenever. Just let me know.
And we're going to root that this podcast gets downloaded more than Bronson's.
100%.
Yeah,
that's right. We're going to make sure it does.
I'm going to go. I'm going to send out some messages to a couple hundred or a couple thousand people and just say, "Hey, just go down this." I'll get all my kids' friends to download it.
There you go.
There you go. We'll rub it in on.
We love winning. Yeah.
All right, sir. Well, we sure appreciate it. And we'll stay in touch.
Thanks for taking the time with us.
Yeah, man. Thank y'all.
Yes, sir.
We'll see you.
I really enjoy talking to him.
Man, I do too. He's just a plethora of information.
He's the real deal, and
he's a hunter.
Yeah, we need to have him back many more times because I think we've got a lot of questions.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
and we need to help him. Help where it's appropriate for us publish that data. And start helping shape public opinion. We really do.
So depressing probably isn't the right word, but it is eye-opening, and it's something that everybody needs to pay attention to.
And this is real timely. I think you're having all these conversations with me right before turkey season because I'm going to have a week head start on you.
Well, last year, I think the whole month of March, you didn't walk through the doors.
No.
Of the office.
That's
I was the only one here.
You were the only one here.
Basically.
I had your head in your bed. I get it.
So COVID, you got to quarantine during turkey season.
Yeah.
That wasn't fair at all.
I'm going to have to find somebody that's got it when turkey season rolls back around.
Yeah. Maybe Jess will still be on quarantine.
Yeah, probably will.
And I don't want to make light of it, but Lord have mercy. 2 weeks during turkey season for you is not fair.
I loved it.
Yeah. It was not fair. So look, we've got I think, Mac, you've got to ask Dudley question. If you could read that, we'll get Dudley to keep this show moving.
You got it.
Hey, Dudley, this is from Todd in Cordell, Georgia. which is about south central Georgia.
Gotcha.
Hey, do y'all know what Cordell is famous for?
Cordell, Georgia?
Cordell, Georgia.
Is it a fishing lure?
I know. Nope.
No?
Okay. It's the watermelon capital of the world.
Okay.
Is that where the watermelon crawl happens?
Well, I thought you guys would know that. So go ahead.
Well, you're just full of it today. Yeah.
All right, so here's Todd's question. I received my white oak and nut all trees yesterday. The low will be 29 degrees Sunday morning. Should I wait until Sunday afternoon or even Monday to plant? Will my trees last that long in the box? Thanks, Dudley.
Okay. What was his name again?
Todd.
Todd. All right, Todd. Good question. I get that one a lot, and it's a very important one. Think about it this way. We grow these trees as naturally as we possibly can. So we start them in a greenhouse, but when they're about a month old, we start moving them outside for the rest of the growing season. And so the trees you got in the mail the other day have already seen temperatures much lower than that. So don't worry a bit about it. Get them in the ground. I think we got down to like 17 or 18 one night already. And they're grown with their roots above the ground. So that's even colder than your conditions. So get those bad boys in the ground.
Preconditioned.
If you were like in northern Illinois, I'd tell you otherwise. Maybe wait till the spring. But yeah, get them in the ground. Let them be rooting in.
In the common rule is if the ground's frozen, don't plant them. I mean, you don't.
Yeah, you can't dig. There's also a phenomenon called frost heaving. And so when you get north of where we are, I don't know, maybe somewhere in Kentucky, theoretically you can plant all winter long.
Here.
Or up there on a mild winter. But if it gets down to 20 one night and it had been, 50 the day before, that ground is going to freeze, and it can actually push your tree out of the ground.
Oh, kind of the opposite of frost seeding.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the whole process.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's one thing you have to be aware of the further north you go. I've heard of people taking a pin flag and shoving it through the roots and into the ground.
Oh, to make it stay in there?
To help keep it in there. But we're getting a little off subject.
Yeah.
Hey, we tend to do that.
Well, good. Well, thank you, Dudley. That was
Thank you, Mr. Know-It-All.
So
what was that? Heaving? Frost heaving?
Frost heaving.
Very familiar with frost seeding.
So I've got an idea. Mac, if you're going to read these questions instead of having the actual person, could you, whatever state they're calling from, could you try to read the question and sound like a person from that state?
I could definitely give it a try.
I mean, I think you got Georgia there. I mean,
yeah, Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, pretty close.
Pretty
Louisiana
close.
might be a little different.
So maybe we can go for some states and
yeah,
see
we
can challenge Mac here.
I like
fine.
it.
I can
Maybe
do that.
somebody from New York or something.
So Todd gets a gift pack, and then anybody, if you've got a question for Dudley, and I'll go ahead and say it, y'all are missing the boat because he can answer a lot of different topics other than trees.
Even if I don't know the answer myself, I know
Fashion.
a lot. I know a lot of people.
He'll find out.
Raising kids, religion. There's just so much that he knows about. So, all right, well, good. Well, we got that done. Is there, Lanny, is there anything else we need to do on your end?
No, I have some more questions for Dr. Chamberlain, but we'll just have to have him back on.
Sure. Well, when we say what did we learn today, we learned a lot.
Yeah, I learned a lot.
I love turkeys, and I want them to be around a lot longer.
Wasn't it almost, I mean, I'm going to mess the names up like I do on everything. It was almost, wasn't it considered to be the national bird? Or?
Well, yeah, I think Benjamin Franklin wanted to have it be the national bird.
There you go. Now, we don't need to do that because then we really wouldn't be able to hunt them, would we?
I don't know.
Bald eagle doesn't taste as good as turkey. I don't know if y'all figured that out yet.
Yeah. Well, what does it taste like?
I don't really know.
Chicken.
Oh, all right.
Anyways.
Well, we've been here a long time. We probably.
Hey, we got some Neil guy over here to eat.
I smelled it come in.
Smells good.
Vandy was sneaking in.
Chef
the door
Vandy slipping on in here and putting some victuals down.
Yeah,
can't beat that.
All right, guys. Well, I've enjoyed it, and we certainly enjoyed having Dr. Mike Chamberlain from Georgia.
Forward to having him again.
So, Dudley, say goodbye, Dudley.
Goodbye, Dudley.
Get us out of here, Cleve.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Gamekeeper Podcast, and be sure to tune in again. Subscribe to Gamekeeper Farming for Wildlife magazine, and don't miss the Mossy Oak Properties Fistful of Dirt podcast with my good buddy, Ronnie Cuz Strickland.